Oh, no, it just went back on. That's weird. That's weird.
Okay, so first question is from Derek. What's the intention for the meeting? That's a great question, actually. Yeah, it's basically like a Q&A. If there's things that you want to talk about, maybe that are like bigger topics, like I know for office hours, we kind of talk about like specific issues. And if you want to bring those up here, I suppose you could. But for the most part, we're going to try to hammer on like things that are like bigger issues. Like I noticed Abstract Office doesn't have blah, and I would like it to have blah. Or I really wish the compiler had interfaces, Paul. Those kinds of things are great topics for this, or like what kind of challenges do you see over time, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so those are the kinds of questions I think that we're looking for. Did I get that right, guys?
Yeah, maybe also start with introducing the panel that we have every time, so everyone knows who's in the panel for that specific
Oh, that's
day.
a good point. Yeah. I'm just hosting this, but I'm at a mixer, the global head of developer experience. In Loveless, we got. I'll let you guys figure out who's going to go first.
Eric Hinkle. I'm a product owner here in the product department. My realm of influence, I guess, these days is primarily CI, industry related, industry content, things like calculations view, pick lists, categories. There's kind of things, CIL, COM, and a whole range of other small things. Paul Jones. I am the product owner for our developer tools team. So a focus on the compiler, the language, operator, the VS Code extension, Emacs integration, and then a couple of small things inside of CET itself, but very, very few these days. I should have mentioned Office. That's a big one here. That's, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Johan Lindholm, been with Configura since '96, so i.e. forever. I am in the sales team as a sales architect, and my main focus lately has been a lot of performance things. So that's actually kind of interesting too. So, but yeah, my area of influence is mostly because I've been here forever. I know everyone at Configura. I know who heads I need to bash in to get stuff done. So.
He does.
Awesome. The first question looks like we have outside of Derek's question is from Peter. So go ahead, Peter, if you want to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Either way, we're just doing this live. So.
Yep. So just a first one, or just a question on. So if you're recording this, it'd be great. Later on, if we hit on something, are you going to post this somewhere? I think the Configure has like a YouTube channel that has like 5 videos in it. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't checked in a while, so cool. Because yeah, I was hoping if there was something interesting, I don't have to. My notes are good; they're not that good, so it'd be nice to just send a link to go. Hey guys, something really interesting came up. I'd like for you guys to review it. So.
Yeah, I'll drop that on Dev News later today. I'll try to get the recording out, and then I'll go ahead and put the web link in the chat so everybody has it.
Since you hit on the YouTube channel, the YouTube developer channel has quite a bit of stuff in there.
I should probably. It's been a long time since I looked at it. Yeah, so I should probably review that again.
Yeah.
The next question looks like it comes from Frederick. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. There was some talk a couple of months ago about adding a wiki to your website. Is it still in the news?
So what we're working on right now, I guess this one's for me. What we're working on right now is actually using a platform called Archbee, which is going to end up being, I would say, a little bit less a wiki and a little bit more refined help articles. But I guess I'll go ahead and publicly say this. The end goal is to allow our developer community to actually contribute to those articles, but that functionality won't be turned on for a little while because there's some fancy stuff we have to do to get that working. But that's kind of the end goal, is to be able to allow people to at least kind of put stuff in, and then we're going to have some oversight into the stuff that's going into it to make sure it's actually true, that kind of thing.
So it's going to look a bit more like a forum than some documentation?
It's going to look more like documentation than anything else. Let's see if I can give you kind of a screenshot here. 1 second. So here is a screenshot that I feel somewhat comfortable sharing. Right now, we're looking at refining the stuff that's in there to make sure it's good quality. Oh, well, I guess I put the URL in the picture. Oops, a daisy. Yeah. So anyway, there's there it is right there. A lot of the system is actually locked down anyway. So if you did manage to find your way here, there's pretty limited stuff that you should be able to see. Yeah, but this is what the new thing is going to look like. You'll see like on the left hand side we have like different things that you can go to, and then like we can actually get a bit more freedom in how we design the articles that we add.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone been using the new VS Code extension?
We actually use it. There's a couple of developers at OFS that use it. I use it. There's a few issues here and there. The debugger is kind of nice. I would like to point out that it is a little annoying if I'm typing out some code and then there's some kind of crash or something that happens in core code and it immediately opens the file and also highlights a bunch of text. And then as I'm typing, I'm replacing that text now. So I have to hit Control Z or undo the changes and then restart developer.
Haven't heard of that one. Did you put in a ticket for it?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah, do that. I haven't heard of that one, so
Okay. I guess then I just have kind of a question as to like how that's going, or if there's a like an update coming soon for some of the other issues that are in there currently.
Yeah, so we're trying to work our way into a release cycle of every 2 weeks. We have a release window for whatever it is we have that's ready, and whatever has been like in an early release long enough. So eventually there'll be something every 2 weeks or so. It won't be a lot, but we want to like iterate more frequently. There is some stuff coming. Improvements to like code snippets is coming. That was a big one a lot of people asked for. Improvements to like inserting like the copyright notice and stuff like that is going to be in there. However, the biggest like mountain that we have to climb right now is dealing with just how the compiler works. The compiler needs there to be a file with code in it in order to compile it and tell you things about the code, which is a bit of a hurdle for us in order to make a lot of things more smooth. Working on it. It is being actively worked on. It's just there's a lot of things we're being actively working on right now.
Okay, cool. Any indication as to when like some of the not necessarily smaller issues, I understand it's not easy to solve these problems, but things like syntax highlighting, I know props is just not working very well right now, as well as RS files. I think I opened one the other day and it didn't really seem to understand it at all.
Yeah, the syntax highlighting is a lot easier to fix. That can probably get out sooner than the other things I mentioned. It'll take me a minute to look up, but I'll have to see where they are in like the priorities. But yeah, those I would expect to see changes come sooner than other stuff.
Okay, cool. I have another question. I guess it's on the kind of other side of things, just more CM related. As Adam Mixter had asked, when our interface is going to be added, or some kind of ability to do parallel processing. That would also be really, really nice. C#, for instance, has like this parallel for each or parallel for syntax, where it'll just automatically split up work into multiple threads, and basically it won't continue with the code until all those threads are done doing their work. Something like that would be really amazing. I understand that's really hard though.
We're investigating some options. At this point,
multi-threading is basically out. But we're looking into some other options like, let's see, what have we talked about? One, I really like the idea of making our support for external language defined modules better, like being able to write your stuff in, say, you know, Rust or C# whatnot, be able to do that and then have a smoother interaction between them. If there's a way we can make that, you know, cross-process boundary faster, I'd like to look into that. We have also talked about an idea for making sort of parallel processing in CM a thing. Basically, we would have the current version we talked about, there would be like a separate CM process that you can ship code over to and then get code back every so often. There are a lot of problems with that, so it's still pretty rough. Just giving you some, you know, thoughts that we're having on how to tackle it. We know that the tasking system needs addressing. That's probably where a lot of our focus is. Well, as much as we can, just because that's a known thing that needs to be fixed and a known thing that we probably can fix and see improvements from. So that's, you know, easy to prioritize. But we're looking to other options as well, but no decisions yet.
Okay, yeah. That was something that I did investigate. Is just I know that there's obviously a way to write a C# DLL, and then you can kind of call that from CM. The biggest problem we ran into is the amount of performance lost in the translation back and forth. Basically, killed any hopes of a speed up with trying to use like parallel processing in C# or anything like that. So we kind of just left it there. But yeah, any improvements there performance wise with the translation back and forth would probably have us look at that again. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like that. Sorry, laptop. I really like that approach, only because anytime we add something new, that's another thing that configure has to develop and maintain and debug and support and blah, blah, blah. But whereas if we can just, you know, make interactions with other languages or other modules easier and faster, that's everybody wins.
Have you guys ever thought about switching languages?
I mean, you could try Spec. I mean, that's a different language, right?
We had a question from James in the chat here. Was there any plans to make a language server that can be used between Emacs and VS Code?
Plans? No. Do I want to have that? Yes, very much. Again, but it actually runs into the same problem we were talking about earlier, where the CVM today very much wants to work on a set of files that exist on your disk right now. Whereas even like LSPs, they more want to be able to work on something that's hypothetical, like pass the LSP, you know, a chunk of code that just exists in memory and say, hey, tell me about this. We can't work that way right now with the current state of the CVM. I'm hoping to get to that this year, but I don't even know what options we have. It's just too soon. So yeah, a long answer short, LSP would be great. That would make integration with other tools inside of VS Code, inside of Emacs better, and maybe even quicker support for other platforms as they come up. But I don't have any specific plans yet.
All right, looks like next question is from Sriram. Go ahead.
Hello, team. So my question is more related to this 15.0 migration. I think in 15.0 we have introduced this new UI UX new look of CET. But currently we are not making that as a mandatory. Rather, we have this toggle button so where the user can, you know, like switch between these two views. I just want to understand, it's only going to be visible in the developer mode, or that toggle button is going to be there in the production version also once we release 15.0. And what is the plan, you know, like with other manufacturers, that are we also mandatorily need to change to this new look or is there any time window that will be given to each manufacturer? Within that, we need to move, or it's just an optional for manufacturers?
I think this is probably a good one for me because I'm actually supposed to own the understanding of this whole process. So we did talk about this in the migration webinar, but the short version of your question is yes, that button will be available to users. So they will have the ability to turn on the new UI themselves in 15.0. It will be off by default. When we move over to 15.5, that button will still exist, but it will be on by default. And then in 16.0, the current plan is to remove the button altogether and just have the new UI. There was a group of people at Momentum, both in the US and North America, that were asked if they wanted to be in what we call an early adopter for that stuff, for making those changes. We gave them the documentation of what the design system is supposed to look like and what the new design would be. If you're interested in that, after this, just send me an email and we can kind of get you sorted. But that's the general plan, is to, for now, only the early adopters were asking to make those changes because basically, like, if we make improvements, because we've already done that a few times, to what's available and to ease the developers, like, generation of these libraries to fit to these standards. We don't want, like, everybody to have to go through, like, okay, well, shoot, we need to update this, this, and this, so they can, you know, move a little bit faster, that kind of thing. So then the idea is to have like a 6-month period where we're going through that with an early adoption group. Then all of the development community will have another 6 months to actually get this thing sorted out in its entirety. Basically, with around this time next year is when we would finally be finalizing the new UI, so that everybody's looking at it all the time.
So the individual manufacturers need to work on that in that time frame, or Configure will probably take care for those extensions?
No, definitely the expectation right now is for individual manufacturers to take care of these changes. If you need assistance, of course, you know, we can bill you for it, basically. And then another thing that was brought up often is about like icons. We're looking into how we can help support if somebody needs like icon changes.
Okay. Just one more question around core scheme. So are we going to obsolete the core scheme? If so, what is the timeline for that?
We are going to obsolete it. Mixer, unless you've heard news on this, I believe it's still November is when we plan to market and deprecate it, I believe, with the plan to remove it on subsequent release after that. But that is not finalized yet. We'll make sure that there's extra notice for this. We are aware of, we think we're aware of who would potentially be impacted by this. I know there's a couple manufacturers still wrapping up their migration, but most of them, I would expect to see them done well before we would have any code removed.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks like next hand up is Adam Markolitis. Go ahead.
Hey guys, I guess my big question is, like, with more and more things being pushed to standardize across manufacturers, like, how do we as external developers and manufacturers push appropriately to get changes in? I'll just give a recent example that popped up. A couple of users have asked us, like, there's a push to top or push to bottom inside the scheme editor to move your save schemes up and down. And they were like, can I just have a sort alphabetically A to Z or Z to A, just a single button in the right click menu? This is like a 10-minute sort algorithm into the scheme, but obviously we don't want to make it custom in ours. We want to push configure up, but I understand this is going to be very low for you guys. Like, I don't care about a sort algorithm, right? So how do I push that appropriately? Because my users care about that.
That sounds like you, Eric.
No, well, hang on. Adam, can you talk about your thing yet? Your secret?
Should I talk about my secret? What do you think?
I would love for people to know about your secret. I thought
Okay.
Oh, you have a secret?
Yeah, I have a secret. On Friday, I'm going to be announcing that we're going to be allowing external merge requests to core. So Adam, if you want to write that code and send it to us, we can get updated on merge request from you.
I will gladly accept it and regression test it through our process and get it released. Yes.
Great.
Yeah, and you know, we're gonna take our own. We'll basically take it from a code review standpoint and go through there. So you know, we may end up reworking things. At least on my team, I can't speak for every other team, but in the end, we're all very excited to see what we might be able to do in this realm. You know, and without this, I guess the answer to your question is, you know, we need to see, number one, the feature requests come in. That's a hard thing sometimes. We've gotten a lot better at that with our backlog management over the last probably, well, starting 2024 really. And so like if you've got features like that coming up, you know, bring them up through the channels that you have, get the ticket in, and we will evaluate and prioritize those things as we can. You know, if it is low enough hanging fruit and you know, as you say, the juice is worth the squeeze, you know, we'll get those things in. But we are weighing those against a very large load of new work that's needed as well to keep progress going. So it's that constant fight of maintenance,
Yeah.
low hanging fruit / feature development of things already there and new work.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And that's where I'm like, I know the realistic odds of getting this done is slim, but it's like one of those quality of life things where a user has 100 save schemes and they just want it to be in some order that makes sense, you know? So it's like, I feel your pain. The odds are very low.
Well, and full transparency, it's very hard for us sometimes to recognize or to get the like user feedback for is this juice worth the squeeze? You know, so
Right.
if you feel like you've got, and this is true for anybody in this call, if you feel like you've got, you know, enough, you can say, hey, I've got 20 dealerships all asking for this independently, right? That's going to rocket it to the top of at least my priority list if it is in my team's domain. And I would say it's probably true for every other team. I would say that's probably true for you as well, right?
I don't look at any of the merge requests, accept them.
All right, so send my merge request to Paul. I got it.
Yeah, but I mean, you can only change, you know, like VS Code extension and operator and stuff. But
Oh,
yeah,
damn.
go nuts.
Well,
Or the compiler, I guess. Go ahead. No one uses that.
I have one more, if that's okay, kind of in a similar vein. Not quite the same, but I talked to Lindholm at the partner meeting about this. And, you know, we've been seeing some features from the Innovative Extension Award. And I would say that kind of puts them high up on the list of like, oh, the users love this. They voted as #1. The one in particular that I'm talking about is the favorites extension, where you can take individual buttons and mark them as favorites, and they all go in a nice big list inside an extension library. And that, I think that won first place. It won last year or the year before, I forget. We have a tool that does that, custom tabs or custom toolbox, but you can't send individual buttons to it. Why are we not looking at these innovative things going, instead of somebody recreating the wheel? Because now our users are asking for a way to move individual buttons because they saw that feature. I'm like, I'm not remaking this feature. Custom toolbox should just do this. Are you guys looking at these innovative features and going, hey, we have a mechanism for that already. It should just work. Same thing with like the search feature. I brought that up as well. One of the things that won was search and being able to tag individual buttons with keywords. And, you know, Johan looked into it with me, and like the only way to do it is basically put a fake keywords language in there in the RS file that you can search on. And it's like, but there could just be a keywords field in there because that's what it searches on. You know, these are small things. I know not small thing, but these are quality of life things that make those like toolbox things infinitely more usable, because right now they have to send giant groups of buttons and they don't use those. They want individual buttons. So we're stuck in like a hard place of like, they see this cool feature and they're like, hey, Worth, you should do it. And I'm like, I'm not sending weeks, months, whatever, developing something that custom toolbox should just do. That makes no sense. And then everybody's got their own version of it. And now we're away from the standardization thing again. So how do we get like you guys on board to see those and like, hey, our tool should just do this. And it should be important that it just does this. I don't know how to
So-
push those appropriately or who to go to, really.
I don't. Okay, I'm gonna give a soft answer. Maybe Eric has a more specific answer. But I have, what?
That's what I might, but go ahead.
I have noticed that feedback coming from events like that, like CTX, like Users Most Want, those things are having a greater impact on our direction lately. So internally, we've had a big restructure in how we organize our teams, how we organize our development efforts, whatnot. And it makes for a very convenient avenue for real feedback to get to the people who can actually implement them. And I've been seeing that happen. We have been chasing down some features that we should have been doing forever ago, but now like it's actually happening because the feedback is getting to the teams. So I would say expect to see at least some change there, where more user responses, more user desires are impacting what we do. It won't be perfect. We're not entirely, slaved by what they demand from us, but like it definitely has a stronger impact these days. That's sort of my soft answer. If you have a better one.
Yeah, I mean, like specifically to the favorites browser, that item and then several others that have come up in similar ways are being evaluated in our product leadership to determine the priority and teams and when it gets worked on and stuff like that, whether it'll be worked on. The big avenue, I mean, just to kind of piggyback a little bit what he's saying, that the roadmap that was announced there at CTX, that's a super powerful tool for us now for getting this feedback and data behind that. So like you said, like the direction you get, what happened there, we got those votes in, we see those things rocket to the top, and it immediately sparked the conversations amongst the leadership as well as the product owners that, like you said, are on that level of executing these things and pushing them as well. So that tool, it's called Product Board. I don't know what is going to be potentially, I don't know if the dev side is going to get onto that or not, but the user piece is, and you guys can definitely direct users there. You can submit feedback there. You can vote there. All the product owners on the CT side are in that, directly interacting and looking at those, what they're called insights. But that's really helping us prioritize and get those initiatives prioritized with our leaders so that then we can plan them. I guess to give a little more details on the restructuring, what we're doing right now is essentially doing a more or less quarterly planning. It's PI planning, but we're doing it internally. And so we get quarters planned iteratively here now, much clearer with, and we're delivering it a lot safer and more stable. And this is allowing us to get that agility too, to work these things in as they need. So Product Board is going to be a great spot. The roadmap itself, I think it's roadmap.configure.com, push feedback in there. And I've even had other developers pushing stuff in there when they ask for features, because you guys are in a weird spot. Half the time you're asking for a feature, it's for the user. Half the time it's for yourself, right? So it's kind of, you're going to live in both worlds. I don't know what the dev side is going to do here, but tools like that are what's going to really give us the ability to get away from who do you know to get that done, right? And like right now, that still is somewhat of a reality. So, lean on your relationships as you have them and let us know directly when you can. But the tools and the Jira tickets and dev support and all these areas are really having it in there is giving us the data to go back to our leadership and say, look, I've got 80 feature requests for this. We can't ignore it anymore. And then we get the green light to do it. So.
All right, we got a
Okay.
slew of questions
Thank you.
in the chat. Yep. Sorry. There's a slew of questions in the chat. The first one I want to actually address is, and I'm kind of doing this now in reverse order. Sriram asked if there's a document for UI UX migration. There is a design guide, and there are some tools for what can be done from the developer side to achieve what's in the design guidelines, but there isn't necessarily a one-to-one, if you were doing this, you do that sort of thing, like a migration guide. That documentation is something that we were giving to the early adopters, because it's possible that with some feedback, we might change how we do like what kind of things we're asking for some standards. There's been a couple of questions that have come up that like the design team wants to sit and reflect on a little bit before they make a decision whether or not to change those. So that's kind of the reason why the secrecy. It's nothing like against anybody or anything like that. Shriram, I do believe someone from Miller Knoll did reach out to me, so I'm not exactly sure how that individual like impacts you, but if you want that documentation, I'd be happy to email it to you. But then I want to go back to Derek's question that he asked a while ago, which is a question for all of us individually. Johan already answered, but what are some specific priorities / projects you guys are working on right now? Curious what you guys are focusing on at the moment. I'm going to go last, so I'm going to hand it over to Paul because I think he's going to have the most interesting answer probably. No offense, Eric.
Let's see. Okay, so this PI, we've been starting off this project. I don't know what to call it, but it doesn't really have any kind of clever name. But during a build, we want to write out all of the references that you utilize and all the references that you provide. So like all of the classes, the functions, the enums, all the stuff that you generate and all the ones you consume are being produced as a list that will be uploaded along with your extension. The idea is, at least for a 1.0, we can make super sure that when you drop something into the release box, you're not making a breaking interface change. Like you didn't forget to include a sub extension or a parent extension or something. Eventually want to get there. But we're also talking about other cool possibilities for that. Like if we can, for a given distribution, just track all the things that are actually in it, then we can do things like internally we can ask, like if we make this interface change, who will actually be affected? Because we'll have that information. Or maybe, okay, someone pitched the idea of like in say Emacs or VS Code asking, where am I using this thing and getting a more comprehensive answer than what is available today in the CVM. That's one thing we're working on. Still kind of loose in what we're going to do with it. At the very least, we're going to use it as a way of making sure that distributions are correct when you update them. What else do we have going on? Bunch of small fixes for compiler stuff. Nothing exciting, just weird fringe case crashes. We talked about a bunch of small VS Code changes, like we're adding code snippets, some stability issues. I'm trying to set it up so that it's more clear when stuff is loaded or unloaded in VS Code, because that's a big point of feeling bad in VS Code when things don't work, when you inspect things and you don't get results. It's because, well, you're not supposed to. Just you don't know you're not supposed to. Things like that we're trying to fix. For the upcoming PI, the big thing is going to be a project I'm calling Profiler 2.0. I don't know how many of you have used the current Profiler. It's a pretty cool tool where you start it up, you tell it what packages you care about, or just all of them, and then once it completes, it will tell you all the different like functions you called, how much time you spent in them, how much time you spent exclusively in them versus in sub-functions, all this stuff. It's a really great way to get detailed information on where all your time is going, where all your performance is going to. The Profiler 2.0 is going to start off doing the same thing, but instead it's going to be a more event-driven thing where we will, in the profiler, track things like when did a function start, when did a function stop, when did an object get allocated, when it get deallocated, how big was it? Just a giant pile of events. And so you can start running queries on that are more interesting than just what the current profiler does. You can ask things like, how much memory does this function allocate ever? Or how many objects am I needlessly destroying in my entire extension? So it's going to be a tool for extracting a lot more interesting data and performance information from your code. That's the big push for next PI. I don't know of anything super exciting after. Well, okay. At this point, we've already announced that we're working on like an auto documentation website. It's probably not going to be called that in the end, but it's just a tool we have for throw out the code base, extract all of the classes, the fields, the methods, the functions, and all that stuff, and make a NSDN style documentation website. I did a quick demo of it at a partner meeting a while back. We're working on that. We're hoping to have that releasable by November-ish. The only changes really since the last time we talked about it is that now it's going to be easier to just give you guys that as well. So if, for example, you want to use this tool on your own extensions that you're working on, you could potentially just throw this tool at your extensions and have it generate a website that you can browse all the documentation for and stuff. I feel like that's it. I think that's it. I'll stop.
There's lots of random small goodies that.
Yeah, random small bug fixes, tiny things, not worth calling out.
So on my team, I'll start from like, I guess, what's going on actively right now into probably the next PI, actually almost into next release. So the main focus for us has been COM and improving the process for what I like to call a real CLM, not a graded in fabric. We've releasing that in 15.0. We're going to continue polishing off that functionality, adding features to COM itself, things like a COM legend. We're going to enhance the ability for users to manage the exports of it. There's a random smattering of small features we're going to add. In addition to that, we own most of the order export formats that would exist right now for the CI industry. So we're really focused on improving the order export process with ConfigureSIF, XML, and PMX. PMX being the native format that Spec supports. So through PMX right now, you can actually export your full calculation view. All columns translate over with the exception of like, I think your preview image. We're doing our best with XML and SIF since they're a little more restricted in different ways. XML is not that restricted. What's more restricted with the XML is the ability to support the added data. So for example, we've got yardage in our XML exports now, but most tools are not able to read in yardage information, including worksheet and spec right now. So we're working to fix that and where we can and broadcast that information to other software vendors so that they can support importing that data for the users. And we're going to continue pushing for a lot of things with the order exports to clean that up because it's a huge, huge issue. As a little side note here, we're seeing a lot of confusion at least from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of confusion around SIF exporting within the ecosystem. And there's a lot of things that can be done to a SIF export in a manipulation that may seem like it's fixing it and also break things in other areas that you don't realize it. I'll give an example right now. There's currently in SIF, there's an issue with some tools where if you import, you lose pricing, and it's due to the existence of a standard field in SIF that we cannot remove. And some manufacturers, some developers, maybe some of you here have actually chosen to remove that as well, but you might not also realize that there are dealerships potentially reliant on that information in their exports. So it's a complicated situation for us where we can't remove it because of the need of some dealerships and their internal systems that rely on that data. And it is a standard field. And we're seeing issues with another tool that we have no control over. And then we're seeing reactions within the ecosystem in CT to fix that when it really is pushing that problem elsewhere. So we want to be careful with exports. Work with us if you have questions or confusion around that. On that note, catalog exports are also a big initiative for my team. We want to be able to generate CIL catalogs out of catalog creator data, specifically catalog creator data that may not be SIF compliant or SIF safe, as I like to say. So SIF allows catalog SIF specifically now that I'm talking about is very rigid as well. You're not within the OFDA catalog structure. You can do things aside from just features that are not available in SIF, like optional select. You can do things to your data to structure it in a way that is no longer able to export as a SIF catalog. And that's problematic because there are other tools that need to be able to generate valid catalogs. And so now we see manufacturers double maintaining that data. So one of my big initiatives is to resolve that as much as we can. So provide validations to warn users when they've done things to their catalog data to make it so that it's not CIF safe anymore, as well as add some strategies to work with making things CIF safe. So there have been some structures we'd identified that we could, for lack of a better word, explode out on a CIF export now. So we're doing that, we're experimenting with it, but there's a lot of variations here where that data can get messy. So you'll see a feature in the catalog creator CIF export that says pre-alpha. It's got a checkbox for doing things. That will generate safer CIF catalogs, but it also has some potential drawbacks yet that we're still working through. So that's another initiative. Now going into the more future, and if anybody wants to cut me off, let me know. We have in the spirit of CLM, we're looking to consolidate material functionality in general and CET. So there's two different dialogues right now for painting materials. They haven't been touched in a long time, so there's some technical debt there that needs to be dealt with. So we're basically making a whole new material dialogue that's going to account for everything: COM, manufacturer materials. We hope to add some type of material library, something that's shareable across users, as well as same thing for COM, save and load COMs. And then in addition to that, a manufacturer material library. So now we're going to talk about manufacturers that make just textiles. We want to be able to provide that data through to in a library experience within this tool as well, so that users can use that to create COMs, or paint COMs, or maybe paint a graded material that's not got a link, with an eye with this work towards providing a single source of materials for you guys to reference for your data. So hopefully a subsequent phase here would provide you the ability to link a Momentum or a Maharam fabric to your graded options, and then no longer have to manage that material yourself independently. Everybody's data can reference one singular material point that's managed by that textile manufacturer. We're working through what that could look like right now, but that's more of a long-term initiative that's going to spread across multiple teams. We're handling the CET user interface side of it currently. I think that's all that's significant from my team. We're called Team Radical too, by the way, if anybody cares.
That's because that's what you are, right? You're radical, that's right, in the best way. So I guess from my perspective, I will just throw my stuff out there really quick. Essentially, the big things I'm working on right now are I am trying to get a new LMS off the ground, which basically would mean that we would have more ability to allow people to do like a self-paced developer training and to try to get those kind of moving a little bit. Bit slow going, but that's something we're working on. Also working on something called the developer survey. Maybe you took it last year, maybe you didn't. But essentially, if you want to be able to decide which direction at least my department goes in, that survey is essentially where I start everything. And that's where like our priorities lie and stuff. So like if everybody tells us, for example, we want documentation, and that's what we heard last year, we basically threw all of our eggs in the documentation basket to try to make sure that we're getting something going that actually is sustainable and kind of gives the community what they need to be successful there. So I'll be getting that out probably in October again, and then in January, actually, I'm going to start doing this thing where I'm going to publicly talk about the results of the survey as much as I can, get some graphs, get some charts, show people like why we're going in the direction that we're going to be going in, how we're interpreting the data, what we say we feel like it means. That gives everybody an opportunity to throw shoes at me one last time before I go disappear, and then hand you guys some new stuff that hopefully solves the problems that you're saying that you have. So that's a big thing we're working on. And then the last thing I'm working on right now, I'd say with most of my efforts, is CET experience. We're trying to get, sessions figured out and that sort of thing. I happen to be married to the event coordinator, so it gives us a lot of opportunity to get cooler dev stuff going because, I got an in with the lady who kind of puts the whole thing together. So that made it so, for example, this year we're going to have, if you didn't hear already, like a separate developer day. So it'll be 2 days of basically user sessions with like a little bit, just a tiny little smattering of stuff sprinkled in for developers, and then the third day is going to basically be dedicated to us as far as sessions go. So we'll have the possibility of having more sessions than we've ever had before. I have quite a bit of space this year compared to previous years, so I definitely think if that's of interest to you, do everything you can to try to get to Grand Rapids this year. So we can kind of show that, like, if we build it, they will come, sort of thing. So we can keep doing this sort of thing. But I definitely think that in the future, we'll at least make the developer day separate so we can get more devs checking out more user sessions. That's kind of really the goal. Is so you guys can kind of see how users are using stuff, and, like, you know, you can be like, oh my God, like they're actually doing that. You got to be kidding me. I did not think about that possibility at all, or whatever. That should give you more opportunity to talk to users directly. And then, yeah, we're going to try to at least offer this all the time. The question is like, do we need to or should we put more sessions in for the community to try to get more people to come? So that's the thing this year. So I think that's everything for me that I can probably talk about. Also, you know, that whole external merge request thing, that was kind of a pain, but we got it. And just keep in mind that also for that, I just want to throw one thing out there. We're going to try this for a beta period. Is like what we're agreeing to right now. We're going to turn it off again eventually, and then kind of evaluate how much juice we got for the squeeze, as Eric put it, and decide if it was worth it as a whole for us to be able to do it. If it is, we'll fix some process problems that we'll probably run into, and then we'll maybe do it, you know, permanently for the future. So, I had one more thing that was in here in the chat. Johan asked a while ago, and I know that Peter was able to respond to what he asked, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it again anyway. He's asking if it would be useful for everybody to compile and run a CM file. This is actually from our Johan, that is, to you guys. So would it be useful for you to be able to compile and run a CM file in release for debugging purposes?
What do you mean by run it in release?
Okay, so so I have a little prototype for my command prompt where I can compile a random file and run that file in actual release. So you can debug things and you can trace things that are happening in the actual released version of CT. So I can compile a file on the side and run, test, and check, and trace out things in the drawing if needed on actual release.
So like the rest of our extension would be the release version of our extension,
Yep,
except
correct.
for that one file.
Yes, correct.
Very cool.
So it's also, so this is the reason why I'm kind of reluctant. It's also a little bit of a security risk if we release that to the public.
It is not a little security risk. It is major. I've been screaming, Johan, please shut up this entire time. It was not a little problem.
So that might be that it's not going to go out to the general public. But as far as the command prompt itself goes, that's just a function in it, so that can be removed from it if Paul has a little problem with it. But
I still want answers to this question, because like there's other ways, depending on what problems people would be interested in solving with this, maybe there's other ways we can do that. Like maybe there's safer ways we can do that. So yeah, if anyone thinks this is useful, please speak up. I'm just not excited about letting you run arbitrary code on the user's machine.
So I'll chime in that we recently had an issue that could only be reproduced, and it's very rare to have an issue that can only be reproduced in release mode. And debugging it was like basically we had given up, and then we threw it to one of our devs going, haha, good luck, you're smart. And he spent, I think, half an hour. We found two things because I had spent some time in the boot file going, hey, how do I get this? Set it up, and then but trying to boot it up in release mode and check it was painful and didn't seem to work. We did get, if you changed, he found, and I've tested this and it works. I haven't tested how it works or why it works, but if you return false in develop mode and then you switch built-in release mode and release.cm, we can switch those, and that will boot it up in release mode. A caveat or something to note that we found out was if you print the release mode flag, it still returns false while you're in developer. So you can't, for any logic that we were testing, which is not good logic anyways for, hey, if we're in release mode, do this thing. That's kind of dangerous. But we were able to reproduce, and I have seen other issues that we could only reproduce in release mode. So that worked for us. So we can do that. It just took a few developers some time to figure out what it was. So we have it. It works. It's just a clean one would be nice. or probably for everyone else who first discovers it. And you could probably just throw it onto the wiki for, hey guys, release mode. Here's a for sure way that works. We've tested it. Just flip this flag or something. But this works for us.
Maybe
Yeah,
have a CT developer just have a button to say start CT in release mode, because it's basically just a flag on the compiler executable.
Isn't
to
it
start in
already
release
on
mode.
I think there is one in the, what is it, the control F12?
No, it's a I
There's a
mean, you
checkbox.
can, yeah, in Emacs you can start in what's called develop release mode. That sets those flags too, with Control C, Control E. If you're standing there in your boot and you start it, and you actually start it in release mode, but that's kind of hidden. And understanding that that's what you're going to do, it's kind of like almost impossible to find. So maybe have a very nice button in CT developer that just start CT in release mode, the current code. I think would be super useful.
You would want a developer,
I mean,
but somewhere, yes.
do we have an article though that describes how to
No,
launch?
there is no article. There's no help articles. There's nothing. It's just very, very hidden inside the CM Basic.
Adam, what the hell?
That would be step one here, maybe.
Yes.
All right, I'm writing it down, guys. God.
So I understand if people are frustrated with that, because it's very, very hidden.
And
It
that's
is a
just
rare issue.
Yes.
I mean, on that note, I don't know. Now, I would imagine that when you find these things that are not documented, let us know, because
Yep.
that is something too that we try to get documented.
Oh, the merge request will definitely start. I have a slew that'll come in slowly, so that way they actually get merged. But it'll probably be things where it's just like, hey, here are updates to like when I've updated comments or things in core code that I'm like, hey, this is like took me 45 minutes to find this before. Let's just leave a comment for when I inevitably come back. And that's probably will give you a good hint for things that are like, oh, this might be good on the wiki if they're actually going into the core code and leaving comments, editing, and so on and so forth.
Adam, didn't you work out like a plan with those teams? Just be like, if it's comments, just shove it along. Like, didn't we have a fast track for comment
Yeah,
updates?
honest to God, yeah. So like the news article that I'll post on Friday will have more details on this. I'll try to be quick here, but essentially like we're actually gonna like reverse by level of stuff going in, what the priority level is on certain things. Of course, we'll make exceptions to that. But like if, for example, you're going to try to rework how snapping works, yeah, that's gonna take us a minute. We're gonna be busy looking at that if we are able to. But like if you're just going to change a comment, yeah, I'm going to put that on the fast track and try to get that in the hands of people as fast as I possibly can. I've got secret, devious reasons for why I want that, but I think the biggest thing is that we just think that it's a good use of like your guys' skills and understanding and stuff. Exactly the situation that you mentioned, Peter, is what we're trying to solve. I just spent 17 hours debugging this damn thing. If I only would have understood what the hell this is supposed to actually do, I would have been better off. And then you're just saving everybody a bunch of time, because the next guy who comes and does that, they just read the comment you left and you're good to go.
Yep, agreed.
One quick question. I have so many secrets, Frederick. One last question I see from James here. Paul, does that mean you will be updating Emacs to 29.3? They fixed several bugs that allow running arbitrary code.
I'm not sure what the next step is for Emacs. What I want to do eventually is get to a place where we aren't so coupled with Emacs. Like right now, the process is you install CT developer, that installs Emacs in a special way and installs a bunch of special packages and locations, and it hacks the CM or the C mode, and does all of these very, very hacky, forceful things that I really don't like. I would like to make the CM integration more just like any other Emacs package. Just like adding, C# support to Emacs. I would like CM to work that way. That will require a bit of rewriting. That will also, I hope, make updating Emacs a lot less painful. Not just for you, but also for us. So we don't need to all right, new version guys, set aside a month to deal with all the bugs that come up. I want all that crap to go away. So we can just, within a month or so of a new Emacs version come out, just push a new update or something. Or even better, this is really where I want to be. If you want to install Emacs yourself in your own way, fine, do that. Just like with the VS Code extension, you install it yourself, you grab the extension yourself, and then you're in control of how all that works. I would love Emacs to work the same way. However, getting to that point where things become easy is very hard. So more than likely what's going to happen is in the not too distant future, we are going to push a new update to Emacs to get us up to date with what's available now. It will probably still be the same kind of kludgy, forceful way that we do things today, just to get us up to date, or at least reasonably up to date with Emacs. But then I do still want to make this change where Emacs is just easier to leverage in general. So either way, updating Emacs is happening. I don't know when, I don't know when to form, but it is going to happen, yes.
And that basically puts us at time. I know, Frederick, you kind of asked, but hopefully that question was that question was answered for you. I guess Markelitis has one more question for me real quick. Did you generate the invite list for this meeting series from? What I did actually is I just posted the ICS file, and then the only people that were actually invited to the meeting specifically by me were our panelists, and then everybody else just chose to accept the invite file like in Outlook probably. So yeah, if you didn't already have it, check it out. I'll put us really quick if I can get there in time, where this invite was, if somehow you got here in some other way. Sorry, it takes me a second to get to the thing. But basically, like, that's how I do these meeting invites right now. Once the Developer Academy is up and running, I will actually be switching it around to where we'll have a thanks Johan, where we'll have a calendar with all of our stuff that we're doing on it directly. That'll be a little bit more manageable, a little bit easier. But for right now, we have one for open office hours and this session where you can download the ICS file and put it on whatever calendar app you use. So. Glad to hear, Zach, that you had a good time. We're always open to feedback on this sort of stuff. Send a ticket into dev support or something like that if you have any feedback. I'll make poor Alexis deal with it. And yeah, we'll go ahead and post this later on. Thanks everybody so much for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.